Hello. So today we are going to talk about a literary thing, a sort of type of series that has really become very popular again in the more recent years. I'm sorry, my bangs are too long and they're fucking bothering me. However, in the past couple of years, we have not seen this in literary circles. Like, this is not a literary thing that happens anymore. This is something we see most often in romance, and I'm talking, of course, about the roman-fleuve. I'm going to read you the Penguin's Dictionary of Literary Terms and Literary Theory definition of the roman-fleuve. I'm going to ignore all. I'm not going to read you all the examples. I will say that Zola's Le roman is an example of the roman-fleuve, but what it is a term used in modern fiction for a series of novels, each of which exists as a separate novel in its own right, but all of which are interrelated because the characters, some or all, reappear in each succeeding work. So this was established in the 19th century when Balzac planned and in part executed his vast scheme of La Comédie Humaine. So this is series. It's a series where we've got interconnecting characters, so they're all in the same universe and they're all solidly in the same universe, but they don't have to be read in order. And how fucking often do we see this in romance nowadays? I have also pulled my Otsboy series because the Otsboy series is a roman-fleuve. It has currently got 7 books out. I've got the first 6 here, and all of them can be read separately. I mean, you don't have to read the other ones. You don't have to read them all, together. You could call this a mini trilogy. You could call this a mini duology, but you do not have to read these in any sort of order whatsoever. Technically, the first book is One More Sad Song, but chronologically, the first book, is actually book 7, but in these 6, the first book is the third book, right or wrong. These books are only held together by the fact that Matt appears in every single goddamn one. And that's what holds the Horror Camp New Woods in with there. At this point, the Otsboys books are not just the Matt books anymore. I mean, Matt doesn't appear in book 7, which takes place in 2001 in Daisy, because he just wasn't around at that point. But these are all connected because we've got characters who are in, at least some familiar characters in all of them, whether that's just Matt in Horror at Camp New Woods and Right or Wrong, at least till we get to Until It Fall Away, in which case we see all those characters again, because this is the Matt book, so of course we see all those characters again. Or because it's Elliot in Horror at Camp New Woods is going to show up in book 8. Or is that book 9? I don't remember. I think it's book 8. I think book 8 is the one where Elliot is the only connection, and then book 9 is only connected by Nick from Horror at Camp New Woods. And so we look at these books and we see that there's just these couple of characters connecting them. And so this series is not one that needs to be read in order, because it's a roman-fleuve. It's not a series where we've got a solid beginning arc to the end arc. I mean, you should probably write your books and write your series to have, each book has its own separate arc. But in a roman-fleuve, that means that each book has its own separate arc. The series as a whole does not have an arc. It might have a couple of themes that run. I mean, Zola loves talking about the evils of capitalism. That's a pretty common theme for him. And I don't know what my theme here is. Maybe it's teen boys have a lot of feelings, except for Elliot, but he's busy killing people, so he's got other things to worry about. But you're not going to have an overarching plot. I did used to think that back when book 5, the Matt book, was the last book in the series, that maybe this is just the Matt series. The overall plot is seeing how Matt got to be where he is. But then I wrote book 6, and then I wrote book 7, and then last month I wrote book 19. So this is a roman-fleuve in a very traditional way. And as I said, we see that a lot with our current romance novels, with the Neon Gods, with the Dark Olympus series, with the Bridgerton, with all of those hockey romances where like each couple gets their own book. Those are roman-fleuves. That's what they are. They're a series of interconnected novels. Just because they're not literary doesn't make them not roman-fleuves. I mean, so much of our current classic fiction was not seen as super highbrow all the time. I mean, think about Shakespeare. Think about how much his plays appealed to the common folk. I'm not saying that Shakespeare wasn't well loved by other people. I mean, he was. Queen Elizabeth loved that guy. But he very much appealed to the common people. I don't think that our current romances are going to stand this test of time as well as Shakespeare, because nobody's going to stand the test of time as well as Shakespeare. But I do think that their idea of the roman-fleuve, I think that it's going to get more popular. I think it's already very popular. I mean, if you think about books by many of our contemporary young adult authors, we do see a certain amount of roman-fleuves. Think about Dustin Tao, who has been doing some of that stuff. Even, I mean, it's not strictly that way with Stephen King, but I do think that he has a certain element of that as well in a lot of ways, his entire body of work. So yeah, I do think that we already see a resurgence of the roman-fleuve. I don't think, I don't think that our current modern romances are as good as Zola's cycle. They're just not. You know, like Zola was a master of his craft, in a way that a lot of romance authors aren't, in a way that I'm not with my roman-fleuve. But I do think that it is an interesting thing to do, and I do think that when I'm writing the Ots Boys book, sometimes like I'll just really like a character and I'll be like, fuck it, they get a book too, and I'll add one. I have 19 books written in the at least first draft. 7 published, 12 more that are, you know, at least in first draft stage, and beyond that I've got like 10 more that are like kind of ideas, like I want to do a book for this kid, and then it just keeps growing. And I don't, you know, obviously I'm not going to claim to know how Emile Zola thought while he was writing, but I wouldn't surprise me if he didn't get enamored with some characters too. I don't know, I feel like that's what it is. I feel like a roman-fleuve is an author getting enamored with some characters. Maybe, I don't know. This was just a lot of feelings, so this was, I don't know. That's my thoughts. That's where I'm at. Goodbye.